How have you and the family been, John?
Very good, thanks.
Yeah. Good. So, before we get stuck into your rugby story, mate, where was home for you as a kid and who lived at home with you?
I come from a little mining village, a little village called Pontycummer in the Devereux Valley, just outside of Bridgend. And that was where I was born and where I grew up. It's also where my father was born in the same house, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah, like a terraced house, top of a hill. So, yeah, it was... lived there till I was about 23, that house, and then my mum and dad moved to a smaller house then, because I got married then. Yeah. I bought my first house in the valley as well, just before I joined Widnes.
Yeah, right. So before we get on to them glory days, mate, how was you introduced to rugby and where was the club that you got introduced to?
Well, obviously I started playing rugby in school as an 8-year-old, and then went through the schools, all the different schools. But yeah, when I was in school, obviously I was pretty good at rugby. Didn't have any honours, any schoolboy honours. But then I went to, I was affiliated with Bridgend Rugby Club when I was about 16, 17. And I guested for them when I was still in school. And then when I went to Cardiff College then, where to do my degree, that's when I started playing against all the first-class clubs in Wales. And that's where I got noticed then. And then I broke onto the scene then for Wales while I was still in college. Right.
So what sort of kid was you? Was you timid, or was trials not around back then for like a local town team maybe, or regional side?
Yeah, I was different then. You went through school and then you ended up, you either stayed in your club side, your village side.
Yeah.
And then if you were any good, then that's how it happened. You go and then play for Bridgend or Maesteg, the two local sides.
Yeah.
Because it was all very local, I wouldn't say there were many people who would play for Pontycummer village side and then go and play for, say, Llanelli or Newport. It was generally, if you were any good, Bridgend would come and have a look at you, and they'd go and you'd have a trial or a game for Bridgend.
Right, so you basically get picked up through the education rugby system sort of thing through your schools and colleges.
Well, no, the schools you play school rugby, and then you play you play rugby club, youth rugby as well. I mean, when back in the day, we played school rugby in the morning and youth rugby in the afternoon.
When you could, and you didn't feel it.
Hi. And then, that's how it happened. And then, so we played both school rugby and youth rugby. So there was different, then through the youth, you could then go on to play for the club at the first and second team. Or, and then through school, obviously, then that was with, I got picked up by Bridgend through the school, because my schoolmaster was a Bridgend player, captain, and he went on to play for Wales as well and coached Wales. His name was John Lloyd, so he was my schoolmaster. So he introduced me to like specific weight training, to rugby and stuff like that. He knew I had a talent. He just was harnessing my I was already a very strong person, and he harnessed that by doing some weight training with me in my dinner hour in school.
Yeah, so he showed you a little bit of professionalism before professionalism, basically.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. He just knew that to get on, at the top, having that extra sort of, and your body developing, obviously stronger muscles in your shoulders, cuts down the chances of injuries and stuff, again, and your legs as well. But he was my PE master. So his name was John Lloyd, and I've been very lucky to come across a lot of influential people in my career. I think he was one of the main ones through my comprehensive days. And there was a chap in the primary school. His name was Arthur Thomas, and there's another chap called Di Harris, who the schoolmaster there, who introduced me to rugby the first time, when I was 8 years of age. But like I say, I went and played for district rugby, but I never, and county, but while I was in school, but I never actually got any schools caps. In fact, I got a bit of disillusionment in the game when I was about 15, and I went to play football. And I actually played for the Boys Clubs of Wales in football. I had 2 caps against 2 Scottish sides. Yeah. So
that's cool, isn't it? So are you one of them that was just like, you were pretty talented at more sport, mate? If say you'd have picked one, you'd have excelled at it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it just happened to be rugby. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know in my day it was only rugby, and then we played a bit of basketball in the summer. But it was only rugby. We weren't allowed to coach football. But but I played football down the boys' clubs, in the local community centre. So that's where we and a gang of boys who used to prefer football to rugby, and then we had a good side. And like I say, I went on to trial then, and I played centre forward, and I managed to get 2 caps then at under 16s. And another boy played with me from a different boys club. His name was Sean McCarthy, and he decided, he was a very good rugby player, but he decided, or his father said, there's no money in rugby. He said, play football, and he went on to play for Oldham and Bradford.
Oh, it's good standard then, though, isn't it? Still a good standard.
No, he was in, the equivalent of the first division back then. He played for, I remember him scored. So he was in Bradford and Oldham when I was in Widnes. So he was up north, same time as me. Yeah.
Did you stay in touch and that,
Yeah, he came when we played, I think when we played Bradford once down at, we played Bradford at the other ground, not Odso. The one where they had the fire, I can't remember the name of it.
Oh, yeah.
He came to the game because he was at Bradford. But I remember him scoring for Oldham against Man United once. I mean, he was centre forward as well, but in the boys' clubs, he was a left back or a right back, I think he was.
Right. So if we go back a little bit, mate, and you're introduced to rugby, do you remember how it was a setup? So was it a small pitch? Was it non-contact? Do you remember much about them early days?
I think it was a full pitch.
Plenty of legs on you then.
They didn't have little pitches in them days, or they didn't play half a pitch or sideways or whatever. No, a full pitch, and it was full contact. Like I say, I started at 8 years of age, and line up in a line, and the teacher sort of picks the tall one to play in the second row, and the fast one to play on the wing, and the plump one to play on, in the scrum. So, so lucky I wasn't.
That'd have been me. Yeah.
But so I think I can't remember. I think I started off. My school teacher actually reckons I started off as scrum half, because I was talking to him not so long ago, because I'm writing a book at the moment, my autobiography. And he's living in America now, Diaries. And he said I started off as scrum half. I can't remember, but outside half I actually played.
Okay.
So, throughout my school up to about 15, under 15, under 16s, and then I played full back and centre, and then at under 18 level. But like I say, didn't get any honours.
Yeah.
And then I went to university in Cardiff. To do a PE course, so I was going to be a PE, to go into university to be a PE teacher, and that was Cardiff College, and then that's where I was introduced to rugby on a bigger scale. I mean, we played all the first class clubs in Wales, and we acquitted ourselves very well. We had a good side as well. We were all students, but we were very fast. Obviously, we'd struggle a little bit in up front against some big sides, but sides used to hate playing against us because we used to run them off the park.
I was going to say, move them around and that, yeah.
Our coach hated anyone kicking the ball. If you kicked the ball, he bloody yanked you off. But it's that was back. 1984. I went there back in the day, and I did 3 years in Cardiff, but in my second year, that's when I hit the big time, because we played Cardiff in the cup. It was a cup match. Cardiff, a big side, obviously, full of it. They had 8 or 9 internationals that day playing, and I played in the centre against a guy called Bob Ackerman, and my handoffs, which are sort of legendary for my time in rugby. Bob, who ended up going to rugby league, Played for Salford, I think Bob did, and may have had a little stint with Leeds, I can't remember. But yeah, Bob ended up on his backside a few times after, me handing him off. And I had all the headlines. And then a couple of months later, I carried on playing, and I was selected to play for Wales in 1986. So it's really, really weird.
Oh, it's like a rapid rise, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was like a I was 19 playing for Wales, and I was still a student. So I was a second-year student. Yeah,
it's madness thinking back. So as you're climbing through, sorry, mate. So climbing through the ages, and for people, listeners and viewers that might not know, when we say out half or fly half, it's stand off or number 10, isn't it? Yeah. So did you feel the standard getting better as you're playing club, school, county, divisional? Are you feeling the differences? Yeah. I mean, you I think in terms of my coaching, as I said earlier, I'd be very lucky to have influential people and good people coaching me, and through primary school, comprehensive school. And then when I went to Cardiff College, I had a guy called Leighton Davis. He was a Bridgend, ex-Bridgend, at my stake, rugby player who was one of the lecturers in college, and he coached the first team. And he passed away a couple of years just during COVID, and but he was legendary, and the college have produced something like 58 internationals through the years. So people like Gareth Edwards, people may know, and Brynmore Williams, Gareth Williams, Ryan Jones, one of the more modern players, and the boy now, there's a boy playing for England. So not just Wales, there was English boys. Yeah. What viewers and listeners want, there was a lot of the Welsh Union sides playing the Premiership, don't they?
Yeah, back in the day, though, it was called the Whitbread Merit Table. It was sponsored by a brewery, the Whitbread Merit Table. And it was just a big league of about, 15 teams.
Yeah.
And some of those teams have disappeared, and some new sides have appeared now in the modern game. But they made the league smaller. But so back then it was a big league, and then you had a cup competition as well called the Welsh Cup. That was played at Cardiff Arms Park at the end of the season. And during my time, it was sponsored by Schweppes. We called it the Schweppes Cup. And but I think it's been sponsored by many different companies over the years. It was Konica a few years ago. But when I was in that time, there was no Premiership or such, or regional rugby. It was and it was an amateur game, So
that's what it was. So as much as you were a student, you'd have been playing against fully seasoned sort level players that are working through the day and training of an evening, and so it's my old time to change.
I wasn't working through the day. I was a student. So,
and the positions that you talk about, John, as much as a 10 and 12 can be stood next to each other, or the 15s out the back, each role's very different attackingly and defensively, isn't it? So where did you prefer playing, and why?
Well, I was always going to be a back. I was very quick and strong, but I was tall. I was tall. I was, but I was very quick. And those kind of skills you need to get to the top in any game, not just rugby league. Rugby union, you need to have pace, you need to have skill, and and stay free of injuries, obviously. And I was lucky to do that. I picked up a couple of injuries later on in my life, but it's the backs is where I wanted to play. I wasn't ever going to play in the forward. Do you know what I mean? So it's different. I mean, rugby union is very technical for a rugby player. It's very your set pieces, your scrummages, and your lineouts, and your rucking them all in. It's very technical.
Yeah,
and it never appealed to me. I think I played number 8 once in a youth game. I only played number 8 because we were short, and I was quite tall. But I prefer playing in the backs. And I started off as like standoff equivalent, and then I moved into the centre and full back, and I played those positions then
Did you play 12 or 13, John?
Well, in the day in rugby union, it was called inside and out. It was, or you played left or right. I think it's left or right in league, isn't it? But it was inside and outside. Obviously, you get one centre who's big and strong and does all
it tended to be the ball carrying. Yeah.
And then you get one who's a twinky toes and he's a bit smaller maybe. But so I was always like the 13, the sort of Right. But I wasn't a crash ball centre.
No.
In my early days, I could beat people on the outside. That was one of my strengths, obviously going on the outside arc and then using my fend to get past a defender. But if they go low, they get you, don't they? But you're relying on somebody who doesn't go low, and then you fend them off. And then I had a lot of pace. A lot of pace. And I had a very good sidestep as well, a very good right sidestep.
Well, that helps you fade off the pass as well, doesn't it? Gives you that half a yard on the outside and away you're at. What would you have wanted from your winger at 13 then, mate? Did you want them to fully trust you? Because defensively, I think it's one of the hardest places on a rugby union field, 13, or it seems it, because of the space you can be left with.
Don't get me wrong, going through schools and then college, you had a bit more time. The standard was good, but once you get into international level, it's much more tighter and then but in terms of playing in the college, it was great because we threw the ball around a lot, so we didn't really we didn't try to do bashing it up and stuff like that, so we tried to use the skills to get people, we tried to get the wingers in play all the time because we had some good wingers. They were very quick. But I was quick as well, and I probably was a little bit greedy on times. But if I come through school where I was sort of the main boy, the key player in all my schools teams, I kind of developed that, kind of trait where I probably did, hold on to the ball a bit more than I should have because I was used to being the main man, and scoring.
I was going to say that bit better than everyone, so you tend to be able to stick, don't you, and get away with the 2-on-1s and right. So you went uni, mate, and that's when you said it yourself. Your time took off, didn't it, at Cardiff College? So how does that chat go to become an international, and what comes off the back of playing for Wales at such a young age as a student?
What comes off it? It's a bit freaky because it doesn't happen. It hasn't happened, and it'll never happen again, I don't think, because everyone's in the sort of, these days, a boy comes through the network, through the school's program, and then he goes into like an academy.
They're on a pathway from early teens now, aren't they?
Yeah. And they'll know from a young age that if they keep going and developing, there's a very good chance they can either they will end up in a region, and then the sky's the limit. If they perform in the regions, they can get a chance of playing for Wales. But my situation it wasn't like that. I didn't have academies in those days, and we just had district sides. And then when I went to college, that was my chance then, because there is a lot of kind of favoritism, or was back in the day. So my face didn't fit. I didn't have a schoolmaster who was on the coaching staff or as one of the selectors then. For the school's net set up, so I didn't get any honours. But then when I was in college, that's all irrelevant, and I just kept on giving 100% every game, learning new skills, getting fit. I was never as fit as I was when I was in college. I was 3 years. When everyone's out working, doing their day jobs, could be labouring, could be working down the pit, could be repping, painting and decorators, whatever. I was doing all skills and rugby, football, tennis, cricket. I was doing all these sports and swimming and stuff like that. So I was never that fit. That's the fittest I've always been, in my life. Low body fat. And you got to know about stuff like that as well. doing a course like that. You know, you got to know about anatomy and physiology, your body, nutrition, and but we drank a lot as well on a Wednesday night and a Saturday night. You know.
Yeah. So what were you like in a new environment, John? Because it's a drastically different one going from college to international setup, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it was for me. Obviously, it was, and the thing what people don't realise is when I broke into the Welsh team in 1986, I was a student, and nobody really knew me because I was playing student rugby. The people who I played against knew me, but the general public didn't know who I was because I wasn't really playing for a top side. I was a college player, and to be honest, we used to play Wednesday night games and Saturday games. We play all the big clubs on a Wednesday, and they were always away. So we always had every game was away against all the top sides, and they wouldn't play their stronger side, but it was still good standing and still good test for us. So and we won some games. You know, we beat Maesteg, Pontypridd, Aberral. You know, we beat a lot of these sides. We never sort of managed to beat sides like Cardiff or Swansea or Bridgend during my time because they had a lot of strength and depth, and they did, even if they threw out their second team. You know, they were always stronger than us. But anyway, it was a good learning curve, and I got into the Welsh setup based on my ability really, and they took a gamble. I'll say that the selectors, because they called them the Big Five back in the day, the Welsh selectors. Right. They were called the Big Five. There were five people who were selected. One of them was the Welsh coach, and then there was 4 others where they were like a number of them were ex-internationals, but being with Wales for years. So that's what happened. And I hit the scene, and it was fantastic for me because I was a student playing, and obviously starting off with Wales. And my first cap was against England in 1986 at Twickenham. We lost 21-18. We scored the only try of the match. My centre partner, Bleddyn Bowen, scored a lovely try off the back of the line out. We had a nice tap down, and he scored a try, and we lost to Rob Andrews' boot. You know, he scored 21 points, and he dropped a goal in the 3rd minute of injury time to win 21-18. So disappointment to lose to England. You know, it's a big rivalry between Wales and England, but still, it was. I had mixed emotions. I had mixed emotions because it was my first cap. I was very sad because we lost, but we had a good time in London after, and the dinner in.
I can imagine, mate.
But then it was, I think, 2 weeks later we were playing against Scotland at home, and I always wanted. I didn't want to be a one cap wonder, and it got picked again, and then we beat Scotland in Cardiff, and it was famous for a world record kick by a guy called Paul Forburn. He kicked a penalty from the 64 meters. So in effect, in his own half, but on the 10-meter line. So halfway between the halfway line and the 20-meter line in league, you know, the 10.
And he smashed it.
64 meters. Yeah, it was a howling wind coming off the East Terrace in the old Cardiff Arms Park, and he booted it over, and Bill McLaren was doing the commentary, and it took the stuffing out of the Scots, that did, because I remember Jonathan Davis had a couple of drop goals that day, and it was a tight game, but we won it. And then again, we used to have dinners with the teams we played against every game. So in the night after the game, there would be big dinners and Dickie Bow Job, and to get very drunk, and all the wives would join us later on, and not girlfriends at the time. But it was fantastic for me. I was a student playing for Wales, and
living the dream, mate.
I just relished it really, and I played for Wales the next year. I was still a student, so I was 2 years a student playing for Wales. But it was a different circumstances. I was doing my final year dissertation and then final exams, and the final exams clashed with the World Cup, the first ever Rugby Union World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. And they allowed me to sit my exams over in New Zealand during the pool matches. So I sat 2 exams in Wellington and 1 in Dunedin. and we played Ireland, Tonga, and Canada in the pool matches. And my last exam was the day before we played Canada in the last match, and we qualified. We won the group, beat Ireland, Tonga, and Canada. I played in Canada. I played in the first game against Ireland, and the third game against Canada. And yeah, we got through then to the quarterfinals. We played England, and we had to travel over to Brisbane then to play England. And we beat England in Brisbane. I scored an interception try, which was good. And we had a good time over in Surfers Paradise. And then we had another game then against New Zealand in the semi-final. That was probably the hardest game of rugby I've ever played in my life. They were very similar. They were very similar to the Wigan side, our arch enemies in Wigan there.
Yeah.
You know, when I played Widnes, it was just that's our Wigan, wasn't it? You know, going for the championship. And I think the All Blacks were very close to being in comparison then to that Wigan side. You know, very, very strong side.
Yeah. So, do you know when you were playing the they're not provincial sides, like the bigger sides you were playing at uni? Was that a potential shot window for you?
Yes.
Or was you not aware? So were you aware of that though, John? Yeah.
Yeah. That's the main reason I went to college.
Right.
I didn't really want to be a PE teacher, if truth be known.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I just thought, I think there was a bit of a conveyor belt of players that had gone there. I knew two of my ex-school colleagues had gone there, three actually, sorry. Yeah. And I just knew it was a good place to be, and there was a potential.
Get yourself out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you know, as most students have like Christmas off and Easter and things like that, in those breaks, we didn't play for the college. I could go there and play for Bridgend.
Right.
So I was then, that was my side, Bridgend.
Yeah.
And then Bridgend, you know, I'd go and play in Christmas matches and Easter games for Bridgend. But when I obviously hit the big time, there was a couple of clubs come in for me, like Swansea wanted me to go there, and Llanelli as well. But my heart was always in Bridgend, really.
Yeah. And when you first broke into the international setup, was you allowed the freedom to play, or is that when structure become a dead set serious thing? Were you allowed a little bit of a free roll?
Well, playing the games?
Like internationally, because you've gone from college being able to sort of dictate how you wanted to play, because you didn't kick a ball really, did you?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And then you've stepped up into that level, which is intense, and it's on it 100% of the time, isn't it?
No, and you had game plans, obviously, and you played to your strengths. I mean, Jonathan Davis was playing 10 with me. Right. Yeah. Okay. Playing standoff. He was... and in rugby union, different to rugby league, the 10 is the key player in, you know, the standoff in rugby union. And a lot of the time, you know, the ball would go to Jonathan, and if he, you know, he would kick a lot for field position and stuff like that, or relieve pressure. And he'd have a go himself, obviously, because we all know how dangerous he was as a runner. But it kind of, I remember one international, right, against England. I think it was 1987, and I touched the ball 4 times in an international.
Yeah, frustrating.
As a centre.
Yeah.
So
it's sad, really, isn't it?
That's not good. And let you know, think how many times the wingers then would have touched the ball. Cause,
even less, mate. Yeah, if they did.
Because they're not like rugby league wingers. They don't drop back for kicks and stuff like that.
No. I think the roles change now, though, John. And they come in and look for work now, don't they? But then it was sort of huggy touchline, wasn't it?
But at the time, that's the game. It was a very you know, the kind of the laws, and it was called 10-man rugby in a sense. Like the ball would come out from the pack, 8 forwards, scrum half to 10. That's 10 players, and Jonathan would, you know, invariably kick the leather off the ball. It was boring, and when I look back at my career during that time, it got a bit boring, and things like that were one of the reasons that I went to rugby league, because I fancied something different, you know.
Yeah.
So
Right. So, like you said, you were approached, mate, by some of them, the power clubs, should we call them, back then?
Just, well, Swansea were a big club and very big, you know.
Power clubs, weren't they?
And I was obviously still in college, so they were putting feelers out to say, well, you know, when you finish college, I'll go coming down and joining us. So it was nice to get that interest and those offers, but I nearly joined Swansea. I mean, what happened there? They pulled out a lot of stops and lined up a number of interviews for me for jobs because we all worked.
Yeah,
you know, everyone worked, but so I was out of college, so I didn't have a job at the time. So I was looking for a job, and then they lined me up for a couple of rep-in jobs, you know, and I got a job offer from a company in the construction business, and then I kind of went back to Bridgend and told them and said, look, unless something changes, it looks like I'm going to Swansea, you know, because the job was important. And then Bridgend did a bit of phoning around, and they managed to line me up for an interview with Wimpy Homes. And I got a job with Wimpy Homes, working as a land negotiator. So I was in the land department going out looking for new housing sites. And
so it's win-win, really, because you're managing to play where you want to play.
Yeah,
and
so
you've come for the job. Yeah.
And it's kind of tight. I had 2 job offers, one with Swansea, one with Bridgend. Yeah. And I took the one. It wasn't anything to do. Wimpy's were nothing to do with Bridgend. It was just someone who knew someone knew that it was a job going, and it was really kind of like, well, thank you, you know, thank you for, you know, putting my name forward. And I had a proper interview, got the job on merit, and then I got and then I was with Wimpy's for 2 years, 3 years, and then went on the Lions tour with British Lions to Australia, and then come back. I was getting married, and then Widnes came knocking on the door.
Right, so let's talk about the Lions, mate. Was that ever something, as well as you knew you were a good player, John, which you can't deny you was, and you're around the sort of people and environment you are, not only as a student but as a young man, was that ever an aim for you? And how did the Lions call up come about?
Well, it's the top of the shop. It's the biggest...
Absolute level, mate, yeah.
Yeah, it's the biggest honour you can... You know, playing for Wales is a massive honour, but to get to the Lions is... it's different with GB and stuff like that in Rugby League. It is big, but it's not as big as playing for the British and Irish Lions in Rugby Union.
Yeah, there's not a buy-in from the fans as to like there
just
is
so many players. There's so many more players, and the standard, you know, it's just it is a big accolade to get, you know, and it's on your list to try to achieve, and you've got to be putting in the form, and it's all how you play for your country. It's not how you play for your rugby, you know, club. It's how you play for Wales, and. I was amazed. I had a call up in '86 we were supposed to go to South Africa, and I got selected for the British and Irish Lions in '86 to play a one-off game against the rest of the world in Cardiff. So we were supposed to go to South Africa, but because of apartheid, the tour was not allowed. Yeah. So if there was no apartheid, I would have gone to South Africa on tour with the British Lions in '86, my first season.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen. But we played against the rest of the world at Cardiff, and we were capped. We got caps for that. We were awarded caps. We were only awarded caps for that 3 years ago. So I've got a cap. It's in
really?
It's in my cabinet over there.
Brilliant.
It's alongside my Welsh cap, and my you know, I got a GB cap as well. You know, there's not many people who've got both a GB and a rugby league and a.
That's a good point. That yeah.
Yeah, you know, there's only a few Welshmen I know. Alan Bateman is one. Yeah. Di Watkins is another one. I think John Bentley has done it as an Englishman. Alan Tate has done it as a Scotsman. Yeah. Jason Robinson has done it. There's not many, but there's not many Welshmen. But it's a big honour, you know.
Fine company as well, John, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's a special tour, and there's a bigger profile on touring with the Lions. It's, you know, there's like 40,000 bloody fans go to watch every tour. I went as a fan in 2017 with a couple of friends to New Zealand. You know, I'd been there 4 or 5 times before as a player, but I just fancied going over as a tourist on the Lions just to see what it's like on the other side of the fence. You know, but as a player, it's the top. I mean, we have the best of everything. I mean, even though it was still amateur, we stayed at the best hotels. We had, not bad gear, even though when I look back at what they have these days, it's pathetic. And we just, it's a great standard. You got 34 players on a tour who, depending on who's the most successful side in that 5 nations or 6 nations leading up to the Lions tour, depicts how many Englishmen, Welshmen. I mean, on my tour of 89, there was 14 English, 8 Scots, 8 Welsh, and 4 Irish. Right. Making up the 34. We had a guy called Ian McGeechan coaching for the first time. He was a legendary coach for the Lions. Well, he's a great player, and he coached the Lions many times after, with success as well, winning a number of series. And then we had a guy called Finlay Calder, who was the captain, Scotsman, and he was a back rower. And when I say back rower, not back rower in league, he was like a number 7, so an open side flanker. We don't have flankers in rugby league. Maybe we should get rid of them in rugby union because make it a bit better. Less players makes more space.
Quicker breakdown.
Yeah. But that was, and it was a great tour. And we toured, the whole length and breadth of Australia. Started in Perth, Western Australia, and then we went over to Sydney and played New South Wales, Queensland, ACT down in Canberra. New South Wales Country up in Newcastle. Where else do we play? But then we had 3 test matches as well.
For people will know, but if they don't, it's a busy tour, mate. You play Wednesday, Saturday, don't you? And so the midweek games will be provincial club sides. Weekends, the big dance, isn't it? So do you know when you go back? Sorry, John. Do you know when you go back? How is it when you've seen the rugby develop, but mostly the culture and country develop from when you last went? Have you noticed big changes when you've gone back to like New Zealand?
I didn't recognise Auckland, to be honest. I went to Rotorua. That had changed a bit. And I started in Wellington again. That had changed a hell of a lot. New stadiums for starters. The stadiums were unrecognisable from the stadiums that we played at. And some of them were brand new. Like Wellington was brand new. Wellington's old stadium was up on top of a mountain, and they called the Hurricanes. And it's so windy there; it's unbelievable. You wouldn't appreciate how strong the wind is. And bearing to play on every game you played there. Because you really had to dig in for if you were playing against the wind. You got these new stadiums now, and Auckland, Eden Park is the home of the Auckland Blues, but also New Zealand play there, and they've got some fantastic record. They haven't lost there for I don't know how many years. But it's unrecognisable from when I played there.
Must be nice to go and see it though. It's good atmosphere. I'd say sitting on being a spectator, it's it's tough. Like you're out. I mean, some of these stadiums as well are exposed to the elements. The stands don't come over them, and it rains a lot in New Zealand, so you're going to get soaked. But you don't mind getting soaked if you're playing, because you're playing, innit? It's different, mate.
If you sat there with your best clobber on, you don't want to get wet, like.
If like having ice in your beer.
Yeah.
So
I don't like New Zealand beer though. It's disgusting. Horrible.
I can't drink lager, mate. I'm a cider drinker, so I'd probably struggle anyway. I don't think they're big on it, are they?
Stein lager, and then all these other things don't like them. Wheat beer.
Is that all they've gone?
Yeah.
Have they?
Yeah. No.
So, what happens when you come home off the back of that? Are there offers waiting for you when you come home from both courts?
Well, no, I was. I came back from the Lions in '89. I was chased around New Zealand by a guy called Chris Casely, the chairman of Bradford. He wanted to sign me. Yeah. Every hotel I got, we stayed at. I had a note in my pigeonhole. Please ring me. I want to sign you. I got the money. I'm going to come home from New Zealand. I'm going to come home from Australia with somebody. And I just said no. I'm not interested. And then he signed a scrum half. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name now. Kiwi scrum half. Oh dear, can't remember his name. He did bring someone back with him.
Right.
If you look at the records, there's a Kiwi scrum half who played for Bradford in it would have been 89. Yeah.
Right.
He was there for a few seasons. Good player. Strong you are. So yeah, I'd said no to Bradford, but previously I'd said no to a couple of clubs. Warrington, St Helens. Me and Paul Moriarty drove up to St Helens once back in 1987 just for a trip. We had no intention of signing. We just went up to see what we were worth. It was nice to sort of say, like, what are you gonna offer us? You could go back home and say, oh, we got offered, I don't know, 150
whatever
grand,
it was.
Whatever it was,
Yeah.
But nah.
They call it testing the open market now, John. That's what they call it.
But it was funny, me and Paul were best mates, and we just hired a car, it was all paid for by St Helens, and we travelled up, and we went to the old ground, Nosey Road, and we met Alex Murphy and Joe Pickavance, one of the directors, and we were having a meal and a chat, and then we all went into a room then separately, me and Paul, and he went in first, and I had my ear to the door, and I was listening and outside, and it's quite funny listening to Paul asking for a lot more money than they offered him. But,
you gotta try, haven't you?
Yeah, and then it was my turn there to go in, and it was exactly the same. It was quite funny, and it was a bit of a day out, like a long day, up and back from Bridgend to St Helens in a day is a good drive. And,
it's a good effort.
We had a few sherbets that night. Paul stayed at my house. Yeah. But yeah, I had Warrington. I met the old coach there. He's dead now. Johnson. Brian Johnson.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah, back in '89. The Kiwi, he was Aussie coach.
Right.
I think it's Brian Johnson. He died a good few years ago now. But he came down with one of the scouts they had, a Welshman. I won't tell you his name because, but he lined us up for this meeting, and we met them. They came down to meet us in Cardiff. Yeah. So yeah, only a couple of offers, and I come back from the Lions tour in '89, looking forward to playing rugby union again because I was, I had a good tour with the Lions, and it was kind of reinvigorated me. I was really buzzing to play rugby union again, and then Doug comes. Jonathan rings me up. Jonathan Davis was already there. Him and Paul Moriarty had signed several months before me, and they rang me up to say, "Witness are coming for me. You better get your
your backpack."
Yeah. So they came down. Dougie came down and visited me, and he was never a great coach, Dougie, but he was a great man manager.
I've heard that a few times. Yeah.
Yeah, and he would, he could charm the birds out of the tree, Dougie, and he did do all that. There's 13 players in our game, he said. Whole room, he said. How in wrong he was there, let me tell you. But he was good, and it was kind of like a new challenge. I had people there I knew, good friends, obviously Paul and Jonathan, let alone Tatey and Mossy Caloto, I knew anyway. From my rugby union days.
Yeah.
I'm on the fire. I mean, it was some special side, and I remember, signing and then going on honeymoon. I signed 2 days before I got married, so I can, the money come in handy.
Gonna say a bit of spend.
My wife didn't have much of a say in it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And anyway, I come back from honeymoon. I played my first game in the A team after coming back off being on honeymoon for 14 days on the pop. And I played I'm not doing any training, and I literally had a A-team game against Hull KR on the Friday night after coming home on a Tuesday. So that was my introduction to the league.
It's mad, isn't it? Because what fans won't remember or forget or don't know is for the A-League games, they used to open, do you remember the big black gates on the north stand? Yeah. They used to open them at half-time, didn't they? and you could flood in. But like the fans won't have realised they were able to watch the likes of you playing an A-team game. So can you describe what the A-League was for people that might not know, please, John? So it was like...
it's the second team.
Basically, yeah.
So it's Widnes' second team. They call the A-team. Every side had an A-team. And lucky for me, I only ever played 2 A-team games. And they were the first ever games of rugby league. And they were both... Most A-team games are on a Friday night.
Yeah.
And the A-teams are made up of players who are either coming back from injury or are just backup players for
like fringe players,
and all their and they use those games also to blood some new players or to have a look at, and used to call them A and others on the team sheet, wasn't it?
But trialists,
A and other, and so those games, were just it was just a way for those players to have some rugby, because on the Saturday or Sunday, as it was, we used to play. Yeah. You wouldn't play much rugby if you didn't get on for the first team. Yeah. So in effect, it's the second team, and luckily, for me, I played both for my 18 games at Widnes. I didn't have to travel anywhere, and we won both games, and I must have done all right because I got selected on the bench for Widnes against Warrington, my first ever game. I think it was a Lancashire Cup semi-final at Wilderspool, and Barry Dow broke his ankle, and I was on. Dougie stuck me on a wing, and I was marking a guy called Des Drummond.
Yeah, the winger. Yeah. Well, I had Barry on that one go, mate, and he said it was a mad time to play for Widnes, because even though he's a Widnes lad, he knew really he was only a fringe player because the dressing room was just full of world-class players.
Well, that's right. He was up against Tony Myler, wasn't he? He was a standoff, and Tony had a lot of injuries, I know, but still, he was a special player. And obviously, Jonathan was there as well, and Jonathan had aspirations of playing a standoff. But when I got there, he was playing wing and centre and fullback. Depending on who was fit. I mean, it's an abrasive game, rugby league. It takes its toll, and we did have some. We had a lot of injuries in that side. I mean, maybe that is the reason we didn't go on to win the league after 88. We should have. We lost to Wigan by a point, I think, my first season. But yeah, we should have done better.
What was the chat like from Wales about you swapping codes and coming up north?
It wasn't as big a news story as Jonathan coming rugby league, but it was still a big story. I mean, I was a British just come back off of British Lions. I was 21 caps for Wales. I was still only 23 years of age. Yeah. So I was one of a number of players who had already done it. There's people like Jonathan had gone, Paul Moriarty had gone, Stuart Evans had gone, Adrian Adley had already gone. And then the floodgates did open after me. Warrington signed Roland Phillips, Alan Bateman, and Kevin Ellis. Dar Young signed for Leeds. Scott Gibbs came to Saints. Scott Quinnell went to Wigan. Mark Jones came to Hull. It was a lot of, these are all internationals, all Welsh internationals. And they lost a generation. Wales lost a generation of players, really. So it was, it was sad. I mean, it was sad to come into rugby league because we knew we would never play rugby union again, but we didn't think we would, obviously. And it was sad that we'd never experience sort of international weekends ever again because they were special. But, it was a new challenge, and we kind of watched all those games on TV up north when they came on, but they were never the same playing for Wales. It was great playing for Wales in rugby league and playing for GB in rugby league, but they were never the same in terms of the global audience and stuff like that. And you were like legends for a day. So while you played for Wales.
Because I was going to say, imagine, like you said, because the floodgates opened. Not only was it a generation, it's a virtual spine of a team, which you'll know yourself, if you lose your spine, you lose virtually everything barring numbers, don't you? And
yeah, well, we had so many players that we set up, the Welsh Rugby League side set up again then in 91. First time
on the back of yours all coming over. Right.
Yeah, no, first game was against Papua New Guinea. And Big Jim Mills was chairman. Clive Griffiths was coaching. And we had, people like Di Bishop played that day. He was over in Hull KR, coming to the end of his career, albeit, he went to rugby league. He'd had a great rugby union career. Bob Ackerman was there. Bob had, suffered my hand off in his days at Cardiff.
Probably have flashbacks when he's seen you again then.
Yeah, so we had a couple of players who weren't Welsh, well born in Wales, but they had like Welsh grandparents.
Yeah, the residency stuff. Yeah.
No, it was no residency. It was just we had Iestyn Harris, obviously a very young Iestyn Harris. We had Cunningham.
Yeah.
We had a boy called Parrott from where did he come from? I think he was either Wakefield or Bradford. Yeah, there was a couple that had like Welsh corgis and a couple other things like that. No, I mean generally, yeah. They
I know what you mean.
They all had Welsh
heritage. Yeah. Right.
So,
what memories really stand out for you from your spell at Widnes?
Oh, I was only, I've been writing my book, which I'm sort of halfway through, and luckily I kept diaries of things, of my time at Widnes, and it was, we all had day jobs. Only a couple of the boys didn't work, so daytime was busy working, and then nighttime training, Monday nights, Tuesday and Thursday, and then Saturday mornings, and yeah, it was a great time of my life. I mean, I just got married. I then had two daughters, and they all both grew up in Widnes. Well, 8 and 3 when I left to come back to Wales. But yeah, it was just a great place to be. I mean, Widnes at the time wasn't a sexy town, was it? It was kind of like it was worth a good 10 points to us for opposing teams who still not like the smell. But but I lived in Parkfields, by Compton there. And is it Parkfields? I think it is. And then and we just had a great time. And we were 20 minutes from Liverpool, half an hour from Manchester, an hour from Leeds, the Lake District. We had everything on our doorstep. We had friends. We made friends, obviously, team members and wives, and all became very friendly, and we had a great time up there. And we were quite successful in my time. We won I think we'd won the Regal Trophy in 91. We won the Lancashire Cup. We won the Premiership a couple of times, and we lost one against Hull, didn't we? Was it Hull? Yeah. So, and then we lost Challenge Cup final. Probably my most disappointing game as a Widnes player. Just one of them days, really. It was. I was just, I don't know. On the day, I was coming back from a little injury, and my timing was out a little bit. But yeah, but we had a chance. We should have beaten Wigan that day. We had a chance. Should have. Yeah, no.
Sorry, mate. Some are put to players, because obviously you have the usual cliche, but John Doughty, it's just another game. It's just 13 on 13. But what was a build up to a cup final for you, and did it feel different?
Well, it's the Holy Grail, isn't it? I think they all say, you've got to play at Wembley, you've got to get to the Twin Towers, and I luckily played there the year before with Great Britain in the World Cup final, and then obviously Wembley, 93. And I went back to the year after with GB against New Zealand. But yeah, Challenge Cup final was the Holy Grail. And yeah, I just heard all these stories about, Widnes being the Cup Kings, and it was part of their heritage, history that they get to Wembley, and they just didn't get to Wembley enough while I was there, and Jonathan and all those other rugby union players who had come up there, and converted to rugby league, and Dougie had assembled a fantastic side. But we just needed a little bit more than just Harlem Globetrotters type rugby. We were just full of talented rugby players, but with no real game plan. And Phil Larder came in '93 and gave us that game plan and extra coaching that we never had. And it's funny that we get there in '93 with Phil Larder,
Yeah.
And there was a couple of reasons why we didn't win. Obviously, Richie didn't help getting sent off. I lost the ball in a tackle. Martin O'Fire, I lost my focus in the game. He was playing for Wigan. He was a witness player. I went to try and hurt him, in effect, when I was running at him, and I caught a little sly elbow off him, and he just glanced to the side of my head, and I had lights out for a couple of seconds, and I dropped the ball. Dean Bell scored a try, but not many people picked up on the fact that I caught that elbow, and but it was my fault because I lost focus, and all I wanted to do was just run over the top of Martin, but he just kind of went like this and just caught this little elbow, and I was down, and I dropped the ball, and he picked it up and gave it to Dean Bell, and he scored under sticks. And we scored first, they scored, we scored again. Kurt Sorensen scored. Darren Wright missed a tackle on Casquerit, was it? I mean, Darren never misses tackles, and it was just little stories of that. It kind of it was nip and tuck, and then it got to a tight part of the game then, and then Sam Pranapa scored, didn't he? And then they had a penalty. It's just one of them games, but
it just wasn't meant to be, mate.
It wasn't. It should have been, because we deserved it. I think we deserved it. That team was, well overdue. The thing is, if Wigan had been there so many times, then they knew how to win those games.
And that can be a big difference, can't it? Yeah.
It's a pressure pot situation. It was a lot of pressure. You could feel the pressure. It was like 90-odd thousand or more people in that stadium. It was boiling hot day. I think that the other story was they brought Julian O'Neill back over from Oz to play and dropped Les Holiday. Do I agree with that? Yes and no.
It's filthy a bit, isn't it? It's a bit.
It's wrong. I mean,
but it happens.
It happened, and Les was a great player, and he never played in that game, And who knows? Who knows? Les might have just been doing one of Les's, putting people into holes, and we could have scored more tries. But it's a sad day. But but we'd be. I got to Wembley, and it just wasn't a win for us.
Yeah. And a World Cup final, mate. How's that for you? And is it something you'd expect to be involved in when you come over?
No, not really. But I never knew much about the GB setup and stuff like that. You didn't know what games they did play and where they went on tour for even. I always saw the old photos of Frank Myler, because he's the last really successful captain, wasn't he? And I didn't really know how it happened, or what, as it turned out, I went on the 1990 tour to Papua New Guinea and New Zealand as a late age replacement for Anthony Sullivan in my first season. And that was a great experience. I gained a lot of experience. And then when I went out to the 92, I was expecting to be right in the test site for all these games. We went to Papua New Guinea, New Zealand and Australia that tour. Yeah. And I don't know, I'm a good tourist generally, but I didn't bring the best out of me that tour, and I didn't perform in the games that I needed to perform. And I guess the other ththing is that there's a lot of pressure on you as a player, and sometimes the different coaches can be, the way they coach different to your coach, and sometimes coaches can put a little bit too much pressure on you. They by saying things like today, make sure you don't do this and don't do that. That's a negative. And that's in your mind. In other words, last game you played, you did this wrong, you did that wrong. Make sure you don't do that today. But I just I kind of found it a tough tour, and we didn't. We weren't successful. We lost to. If I remember, we lost the Kiwis. Sorry, but we beat. I think we won one game against the Aussies, but we lost the series. And I think, I'm not sure about New Zealand. We may have been 1-1, I'm not sure. But Papua New Guinea was a mad experience.
I was going to ask you about that, yeah.
Both 1990 and 1992 were both exactly the same. Tear gas, and every game we played was tear gas.
Chaos.
But mad places. I've been to Papua New Guinea twice now. I'm not going to go back there. It's just a mad place. But that was, a long time ago. Maybe it's got better. But very poor country. But
so you're in this again, without using the phrase too much. You're in the shop window again with the Aussies, mate, aren't you? And a move down that comes about for you, doesn't it? You sign for Manly. So,
that I was very proud when I had that invite, because, as you know, there's not many rugby or British rugby league players who get the invite, and this they said that the invite comes from the Aussies, but my old friend Eddie at Widnes, he was big friends with Graham Lowe. And Graham Lowe was ex-coach of Wigan, but he was coaching Manly at the time. And they were just looking for a centre, type of player, from UK. And my name came up in conversation. So, I signed and did the deal in, I think the November, before I actually went the day after the Challenge Cup final in 93. And the only trouble is, when I got there, Graham Lowe had taken ill with a brain hemorrhage, and Bobby Fulton took over from him.
Right.
So that was an experience when I first got there.
Yeah, I can imagine that's difficult, because obviously it'd have been Graham that have, for better use of a phrase, wanted you.
Yeah.
And then you've got there, and the circumstances have changed.
And Bobby Fulton, who didn't want me.
Was it? That's the deal, was it?
Told me that straight,
All right, thanks. So
I had the visions of myself and my wife and my daughter at the time. She was 3, getting there and basically being told to go back, don't want you type thing.
Right.
But I got there, and he basically spelled out what he wanted from me, and if I didn't shape up, as he put it, I was on the next ship. Well, obviously I shaped up, because I played every game for him and was kicking goals and everything for him. So
do you reckon it was reverse psychology then, John?
No, he's just a hard taskmaster. He was a brilliant coach, tough man, brilliant player in his day, and a great coach. And he treated all the players a bit like that, don't get too close to him and keep them on the edge. And at the end, we lost in the playoffs against the Brisbane Broncos. And Manly wanted to sign me full time. The Widnes wouldn't let me go. It's funny. It's just one of those, What if? It would have been nice just to have gone for a couple of seasons.
I was going to say, that's something that disappointed you.
Yeah, it would have. Yeah. I was a popular player at Widnes, and we did sell quite a lot of Widnes players after the Challenge Cup final, but I wasn't one of them. So, it's a bit sad. It would have been great experience. Obviously, my wife was up for it as well, and that's half the battle, isn't it?
Of course it is, mate. Yeah, of course it is. So, of all these places you've been, I was meant to ask you before, what are you like with memorabilia? So you mentioned you've got your cap and stuff. Did you keep jerseys, programs?
Yeah.
No, it's because it's one thing typing it up to send you to say I know you've been here, but when you're actually talking about it, it's so vast. It's so unique.
I'll show you if you want. There you go. Yeah. I don't know if you can see this.
All right, that's it. Yeah, good setup, that.
GB.
Smart. Yeah.
What have I done? Welsh Rugby League.
Yeah, you got your Widnes jersey underneath the GB jersey.
So, that's Manly.
That's snazzy, that, mate. Yeah, I like that.
Manly, Widnes.
Yeah.
my old college, Bridgend, Wales, and the Lions down there. And then these are called grogs.
What are them, sorry?
They're called grogs.
Oh, yeah, the characters. Yeah.
Caricatures, yeah, they're called grogs.
That's a class display, that, mate.
And that's a British Lions cap there.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
And that's a Welsh cap in rugby union.
Yeah.
And that's a GB cap there.
Right. Do you get caps at landmark games, John, or do you get one per game?
No, just one game.
Is it?
One for 50 in rugby union, one for 100, one for 150.
Right.
In my day, nobody went over 50.
No,
really.
Well, it was a very different, tough game.
Yeah, they play more games. They play more games.
Yeah. Right. So you come back, and what happens with witness refusing the move? What do you do?
That's it. I mean, I can't remember how long Phil lasted. That was 93. I come back in 94. It was just a different side witness. And then we got to the 11th hour of 95 or whatever it is with the Super League, wasn't it? And then then we got kicked out. And that was pretty dire, to be honest.
Yeah.
That was dire because we slipped down into the second division of sets, wasn't it? And playing sites like Batley and Dewsbury and Workington and, all these places where we'd never gone before unless it was in a Challenge Cup
game. Yeah. So what does that get you to have a look at the landscape and see what's out there?
Well, no, I was settled. I was a big, I'm always been quite a loyal rugby player. I mean, I was there a witness, and I signed a new deal. So did Jonathan, but then he went to Warrington, didn't he? In 95, was it 94, 5, whatever. Yeah. And then, but I signed a new deal, and we went into administration. You must have, everyone knows, witness in 93 went into administration. So money wasn't in abundance there. We got out of it. We pulled through. But it was still obviously tough not having all those players that we had. We lost all the big names, a lot of the big names. I mean, the only ones who stayed were people like the Hume brothers stayed, myself. Yeah. McCurry, and honestly, I can't remember many others who stayed. Yeah. Jonathan went, Moriarty went, Andy Courier went. Kurt retired obviously after World Cup, after the Challenge Cup. Stanley Famalio, he went. Amossi got injured. And struggled with injury, and so did Tony Meyer and people like that. Yeah, so we just had an influx then of sort of boys who were playing in the A team who then stepped up to the first team, and the standard wasn't as good, But
it's got to say the level changes as well, then, doesn't it? And
we signed a couple of other players. I mean, we signed was it Vivas from St. Helens? Phil Vivas, was it?
Right.
No, not Phil Vivas. I can't remember his name now, from St. Helens. I've had too many bumps to the brain anyway. My memory's not as good as it was. But we signed a couple of players from other sides, And I think Adrian Adley came over from Salford and joined us as well. So, but it was tough. And we played when we went into our second division of sorts, that was tough as well. And and then I remember breaking my ankle then against Featherstone in a cup match.
Big injury then as well, John, that, isn't it?
Well, it wasn't a bad break, but it was a broken ankle. But it wasn't like a badly snapped bone. It was just a crack in my bone, really. It was a crack, but it was bad enough to put me in a plaster for a number of weeks. And then I came back, and then, I don't know, it wasn't right. And then in the end, witness, they owed me money, and I just, I had the invitation to go to Sale Sharks, didn't I? Yeah. To play like a dual contract, and I did that. And I played there for a season, back to back, and so did a number of other rugby league players like Gary Connolly, Henry Paul, Martin of Fire, all these players, Jason Robson. They all went to rugby union clubs in the off season.
Yeah.
And then I did that, and then Sale Sharks wanted to sign me full time, so that actually happened that time. Sadly, I didn't leave Widnes on the way I wanted it to happen. It didn't. Yeah. It was a bad taste in my mouth when I left it.
And you're fully entitled with that, mate, off what's gone on. But where did you? So when you were playing the dual contact with Sale, were you playing positional wise? Was you back in the centres? Yeah.
Yeah.
Outside centre as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had a big Kiwi in the centre as well, a big lad.
Right.
So there was a guy called Josh Baxendale, who's a skillful player, and it was a good. And then Paul Turner, who's ex-rugby union, he was coaching them when he signed me, right? And but again, when I get to Sale, he's been sacked. Him and the chief executive have both been sacked. So a guy called John Mitchell takes over. John Mitchell's ex-New Zealand number 8. And anyway, it was okay. The first season was good. Second season wasn't great because then I broke my ankle again.
Same one?
Same break. Yeah, and I was out for a year.
Right. How did you cope with that, mate?
Well, it was tough. I mean, I literally wouldn't heal, and I was going to see all these faith healers and stuff. It was unbelievable. I was having all these tests, and they were going to reoperate on it. But in the end, it got better. But being out a year, I kind of fell out a little bit with John Mitchell, and I suppose they fell out a little bit with me because they were paying me, but I was injured,
We know fault of your own, but sport's fickle, isn't it?
Yeah, but then that's how I ended up going to Worcester, just on loan, just to get some rugby play. Right. So I went to Worcester Warriors from the January to the end of their season, and really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was good. Yeah. Travel down every 3 times a week from Widnes down to Worcester, back up every night because they trained at night, and they were a good side. And they were trying to get promoted to the first division. And, and then I played all the games till the end of the season. I remember playing against Andy Courier, who was then playing for London Welsh, coached by Clive Griffiths. Big grudge match, but we beat them 13-12 at Worcester's Sixway Stadium. And then last game of the season, we played in Rotherham. Worcester wanted me to sign full-time with them. But I made my mind up. I was going back to Wales. Right. I got an offer to sign back for Bridgend, my old team.
So it's come like full circle now, mate, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, full circle.
And was you more than ready as well? Because some of them experiences have been great, some have been a bit crappy, but it's been some journey so far, hasn't it?
Yeah, but I was still young, I was only, I was 33.
Right.
I'm still young.
Yeah,
and
still time in the legs.
Another 7 years I played. I played 3 years at Bridgend. I went to Pontypool then because I finished with Bridgend because they went full time and I didn't want that. I was retired. I was winding down. So they were, rugby union had obviously gone professional and they were going full time and I just said no. So I left Bridgend and I was just going to retire, and I had a phone call from Kevin Ellis, who was out Pontypool, and he said to come up here. There's a bunch of kids up here and they need an old head in the centre. And I went up there and it just was one of them clubs where sometimes it's like some players always have bad luck in a club and they need to get out of that club. And I had a little bit of bad luck. I snapped my ACL.
Oh,
against Nice. I was 36 at the time.
Yeah.
And it was misdiagnosed. I was told to get on with playing.
As they do. Yeah.
That's it. Misdiagnosed. Even had an MRI scan and they misdiagnosed it. And I went spent my own money to get another MRI scan, and I had a consultation with a consultant orthopedic surgeon I knew, and he diagnosed it as a complete rupture of my ACL.
Oh, so he actually looked at the scan, did he, instead of not looking?
Well, he had the scan upon a poor lad, and he had the scan that I paid for with my own money.
Yeah.
And then he said it's hanging on by a thread in that one there, that Pontypool did, but the one you went and paid for, and they made you play and train with a ruptured ACL.
Nice.
So I was in agony.
Yeah.
And had the operation, expecting to have a full reconstruction, but there was always a chance I may get away with that. And anyway, it did. Dave, the surgeon, Pemberton, operated on me, and he said, "Yeah, you'll get away with it. I took away the ruptured ligament, and you will be fine."
Oh, okay.
And then I finished the Pontypool. We got promoted that season. And then I was going to retire. And then I had another phone call from Kevin Ellis to come up to my stake. And me and Alan Bateman were playing in the centre at my stake for 3 seasons. And I had a great time. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And my stake is literally 7 miles from where I live now. It's an adjacent valley to the place I grew up as a kid.
Yeah.
And it was just great to there was no money in it.
Yeah. It was pure enjoyment again.
It was
mate,
money.
Yeah.
It was money, but it was no money.
But
it wasn't for it.
Yeah.
I had a good time. And then I retired at the age of 40.
That's not bad going, mate, is it?
Not bad. It was just, I mean, my knee started hurting a little bit. But then I just said, enough's enough.
Yeah.
So,
and do you know what, you're back into your career, Johnny, you're starting to mentor as much as play, if that makes sense. Are you helping people out with positional awareness?
I did a bit of that.
Yeah.
I was, to be honest, I was hoping I would have done a bit more of that at Bridgend, and they would have kept me on, but not as full time, but just kept me on to do some mentoring, but that didn't happen. So,
and they've never reached out.
But all the other clubs I went to, there was a lot of inexperience. Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
I think it's silly of them not to have reached out to you because of where you've been, what you've done, what you've experienced. It was they've had a wealth of knowledge on their hands and overlooked it.
Yeah.
But again, like you said, that's life, isn't it, mate? And so, a couple of daft questions for you, mate.
Yeah.
So, did you have any pre-match superstitions?
Oh, yeah. Always left sock on first and left boot on first. But then after that, that was it. None of this hopping on one leg over the line and doing all this. No.
Yeah.
And I was never like Bobby Goulden, who had to make himself sick before every game. So, no, I didn't have anything like that. But yeah, just left sock on and left boot on first before the right boot. Yeah.
Was you someone that needed an early involvement, or could you be patient enough to come in at the right time?
Yeah. I mean, rugby league, you were always involved, weren't you? Rugby league is totally different, but rugby league, you're involved from the first second, aren't you?
Virtually, mate. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So your toughest player you've played with and against. Definition of tough is very different for everybody, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, there's loads of tough boys to play with and against, isn't it? Just some, players, just like the boys who did the hard yards, the Kurt Saunson, Marcy Colotos, and Joe Grimmers in the world, in Widnes. They were tough,
Your platform boy sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then again, against obviously, I didn't usually lose out to many players, but I certainly lost out to Mal Meninga in '94 when he smashed my jaw in 4 pieces. So,
nice.
He's probably the toughest or the hardest. Certainly had a hard shoulder because his shoulder smashed my jaw into 4 pieces.
Kind of him. Your favourite away ground, John?
I didn't really have. I suppose Headingley and Central Park were probably because they were our main rivals. Headingley was always a nice stadium, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I always liked the change rooms is probably more than the stadium, the nicer change rooms, because there's nothing worse than going to a ground where they got shitty change rooms and you can't bring a cat in there. And they got the communal baths back in those days.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want is a shitty communal bath as well. But no, I didn't really have any favourite, Norton Park wasn't my favourite, really. You know, it was a shame that we didn't have the stadium they got now back then.
So if you were playing now, do you think you'd prefer the older style stadiums, or do you like the newer style?
No, I like the newer style, but Widnes were crying out for a new stadium because it was successful and they needed more people in there. And then more money generating. Look at Central Park. They had 10 or 12,000 every game. That's a lot of money coming through the gate.
Yeah.
And then you're able to keep that engine going, aren't you?
Yeah.
Get the best players. When there's a new player, someone retires, change a player, bring a new player in. Dougie was always good at that, wasn't he?
Yeah, evolving.
He would always bring he'd turn up at training one day and be like a new player there. We go, shit, the day he brought Les Holiday out, it was like amazing. What a player he's a great player.
Oh, if you've had a few beers, mate, and you're out with your mates and the microphone ends up in your hand, what song do you give us?
Pretty Woman.
Yeah? Like it, no hesitation either. So I understand if you don't want to, mate, because of the amount of players you've played with and stuff. But if you're willing to, that are 1 to 13 or 1 to 15 of the best players you've played with, or the most memorable players. But I understand if you don't want to.
It's a tough one. I mean, I had a long career and I've had such great players. I mean, you just pick the Widnes side I played in. That's good enough for me. But, I like players like, I love Gary Connolly as a player, Paul Newlove, Kevin Iro, they were, obviously Martin was in the side, but then he played to Wigan, it was loads, I'm just picking loads of centres there, aren't I? But in terms of wingers, it's a tough one. And then there's Aussies and players like that. A lot of Aussie players I could pick,
Well, you've been blessed, but you've been blessed because of your own ability that's got you in them teams, haven't you?
Yeah. Like the Manly side I played in with Cliffy Lions. Cliffy Lions, Oni Mile, they were brilliant players, brilliant standoffs. My first game for Manly, I played 80 minutes for the reserve grade, the second team.
Yeah.
Against Canterbury Bankstown. I just got over it. So I played the reserve grade game first. And then this guy comes up to me after the game and says, "You're backing up for the first team." I was like, "What?" He said, "You're on the bench." I just played 80 minutes, mate. So I was on the bench.
Yeah.
And then I think we were losing 10-8. Just before half time, someone comes off, I'm on. Because in those days, you only went on if you were injured. And I go on, and Cliffy, I run this lovely line, and Cliffy, I was in the centre, and Cliffy Lyons gives me this ball and puts me through this hole. I'm in the middle, I'm in the clear, I'm like running halfway line, get into the 20, and start veering out to the right, fullback's coming to get me. And I put the big step in, and if I hadn't played 80 minutes against previous, an hour ago, I would have scored under the sticks, and my just leg crumbled under me. And I got tackled about half a yard from the line. What an introduction that would have been, But Cliffy was a great player. Des Asler. That side was full of great players. Matthew Ridge, fullback. Ian Roberts, prop.
There's rumours they've just sacked Des, actually.
Have they?
That's the rumour, yeah. Apparently they've sacked Desi.
No, sad that is sad. Yeah, there was all over the rainbow.
The jersey, yeah. I think
it wasn't over that, but that created a problem.
That kick-started something, yeah.
Well, there's a lot of the island. I guess a lot of the islanders are very religious, right? And
yeah.
They just probably refuse to wear it, and that's their choice.
That's their belief, mate.
And that should have just been left as it was. But
Yeah.
And then maybe Desi. Oh, I don't know. I know Des. I was only talking to him recently. And I was wishing him all the luck. Actually, it was the start of the season. I was wishing him all the luck for the start of the season, but that was a shame.
It's only a rumour so far, mate. So what date are we on? We're on.
Yeah.
We're on the 13th, so it's a rumour that he's getting replaced with. Do you know Anthony Seibold, who's skills coach at England at the minute? That's the rumour. So,
yeah, well, he was at South Sydney, Anthony.
He was.
You know, and then he went to Broncos and had a disaster. Do you know Anthony Seibold was assistant coach here down the road with the Crusaders when we set up the new with the Welsh Rugby League side, literally in Bridgend.
Oh, was he?
So he was assistant coach to John Dixon, from Brisbane.
Yeah.
And a guy called Leighton Samuel, who brought me back to Bridgend.
Yeah.
He then set up a rugby league side because I lined Leighton Samuel up with the rugby league.
Right.
I got Leighton Samuel to fund then the Celtic Crusaders in Bridgend.
Oh, right, okay.
And they got into Super League, remember? And,
I do, mate, yeah.
And Anthony Seibold and John Dixon were the coaches.
All right.
So he cut his teeth over here, Seibs, and then he went over to South Sydney.
Yeah.
And he done wonders.
He did. He was assistant at South, wasn't he? And then he was head coach at Brisbane, wasn't he? And
that's it, yeah.
It seemed a bit toxic at that point, Brisbane, didn't it? So I'm not sure it was all Anthony, but you'll never truly know.
He had a very, very inexperienced side of Brisbane Broncos, didn't he? And I think he went there thinking he could change it all and a bit of arrogance. But no, he's a good coach.